Howdy everyone! Today is Saturday.
Yeah!
And it's a pretty day out, and we're going to make Yu Choy with oyster sauce. So this is one of my few one-pot dishes, and it's actually pretty easy. So at the very end, you're going to have a nice green that you can serve with any starch that you want. And also the key component to this is really the sauce. I'm deciding to serve it with Yu Choy today. You can serve it with Chinese broccoli if you find it fresh. You can serve it with bok choy, and that's any size of bok choy as well. We have Yu Choy and it's super fresh, and so that's what we're doing today. So let's look at the ingredients. So for our dry goods / wet goods, we have black pepper. We're gonna have a tiny bit of sugar. We have oil as usual. We have our buddy oyster sauce. We have sesame oil, and we have the always handy fish sauce. In addition, for the fresh ingredients, we have mushrooms. This is probably what, like
8 ounces.
8 ounces. We have a big chunk of ginger, and we have one beautiful giant bulb of garlic, courtesy of the Rafi family. We send them lots of love. And then we have the beautiful Yu Choy. This Yu Choy is gigantic. So those are all of our ingredients. And what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to cut these Yu Choy into more manageable pieces, because you could imagine if you're eating this, it'd be really hard to try to eat one giant piece. I'll cut them probably into thirds, and then I'll give them a rinse, and then next up we're going to just blanch them very quickly so that they stay nice and green and crisp, and we'll see you soon. So we have finished doing all the prep work. Jean has ever so kindly helped me. We have cut up all the mushrooms into slices. He has minced the garlic. It's nice and fine. And I've actually sliced up the ginger into almost like julienne like slices, or I guess sticks, except a little thinner. So this recipe actually takes the ginger and keeps it in this state, because it's actually the sauce is going to stew a little bit. So I want to keep the ginger a little more intact so all the flavor gets into the sauce. Outside of that, we have cut up all of the Yu Choy, and there's a lot of it here, and I've washed it, and now we are going to blanch it. And behind it, you see that we have a bowl full of cold water with some ice in it. And now the water in my pot is at a roaring boil.
It's crazy boiling!
And I'm going to blanch this Yu Choy. The blanching process is very simple. We're going to cook this for probably no more than even like 2 or 3 minutes. So you notice this pot will fit all of our Yu Choy, because the Yu Choy is going to shrink down just like any other green as you cook it.
Wow.
There's a lot of Yu Choy here.
I didn't realize we had that much.
There's a lot. We went to the grocery store Monday and got it.
Yeah.
And now I'm just going to use a slotted spoon to kind of push the Yu Choy down, the ones that are at the top, and then also pull the ones that went in first towards the top, and the ones that went in last towards the bottom, so they get some hot water on them. I should say boiling water. And then we're getting to a point where we can actually already strain them out. I know this is incredibly fast, isn't it? If you notice that everything's like a bright, nice green, the leaves of the Yu Choy have become a little bit darker. So we don't want this to get too dark or too mushy, because Yu Choy is only fun when it's a little bit crispy. So now it's been exactly, I believe, 1 minute since the first one went in. I'm going to turn the flame off. I'm going to get that leaf off of my slotted spoon.
Do you need pot holders, dear?
Yes, I will grab pot holders because the handles are a little hot. And we will go over to the strainer.
Uh-huh.
Generally, so can help me and put it in the sink.
Oh, sorry, dear. Go right ahead.
And we're going to strain this out. There's a lot of Yu Choy in this pot.
It's so steamy.
It really is. Rinse it off with cold water, just like pasta. And now we are going to shock the Yu Choy.
Shock the Yu Choy.
Which is the process of just putting it in the ice water. It just cuts the cooking, and it also keeps it nice and green and crispy.
How are you handling the burning hot Yu Choy right now?
Oh, it's not hot.
I guess that's true. You did hit it with a little bit.
Yeah.
It's definitely steamy though when you were grabbing it with your hands.
I have calluses on my hands these days.
That's true.
Alright, and so we're just gonna let this sit and hang at this point. I'm probably gonna put a couple more cubes of ice in this just to keep it nice and cool and really cut out all of the cooking. And then we'll see you just in a couple of minutes and we'll actually get working on this. Our Yu Choy is now sitting in the ice water. Ice.
You put a little more ice in there?
Yes, I did. And now we are going to make the sauce. So this pan has been heating. I'm going to coat the bottom very liberally with oil.
Very cool.
And turn it, make sure it hits all sides of the bottom of the pan.
And you had heated the pan about a minute ago just to get it a little bit warmer.
Absolutely. If you notice, I'm using the same pan that's the one I used for the Yu Choy, and I had a little bit of water at the bottom, so I essentially heated the pan and also wanted to get rid of that water so that the oil doesn't pop on you.
That's cool.
If you add anything else.
What's our temperature like?
It is at high. This whole recipe is happening on high.
Let's do it on high. So where are we going next?
We are going to add the garlic and the ginger to the
All
pan.
of it.
All of it. Remember, this is one full big bulb of garlic, and this is like one probably like 1.5 inch chunk of ginger. I'm just going to split up some of these pieces and make sure that they're not sticking together. So I just want to make sure that no one gets too big of a bite of ginger. And that's starting to smell nice.
It does. Ginger and garlic mixed together smells so beautiful.
And now, in terms of smell, we're going to add our friend, the fish sauce.
Now how much fish sauce are you
We're going to
put in?
add probably maybe just a few drops. So, that's it.
Perfect, that's it.
That's probably like 1/4 of a teaspoon at best.
You got it.
And what's great about fish sauce is it always just kind of adds that savory base. That's why I use it for the most part. Right, and you're noticing the ginger is starting to become a little bit golden. And keep on stirring and frying this up for probably about 30 more seconds before we add in the mushrooms, which will be the next component.
Very groovy. Now, do you think this dish is common in a Vietnamese house, or is this more of a Chinese dish, do you feel?
I think both groups of people make it. I think that, each variation's a little bit different. The version that I'm going to make is going to be the closest to the one I grew up with, and I don't really know where that's from. It could be Cantonese, it could be Vietnamese, but this is the version that I grew up eating. It has a little bit of a thicker sauce, essentially. Sometimes when you eat it in a restaurant, it will actually have a pretty thin sauce.
Right.
This actually is a little bit thicker. And that's actually going to be via the oyster sauce, and sometimes, depending on the consistency of what you have, sometimes we'll even add cornstarch. So we'll actually keep an eye on this and see if we actually will need the cornstarch. So all of the ginger is turning up nice and gold, and now we're going to add the mushrooms. Toss the mushrooms in with the oil and all of that delicious ginger. I'm actually going to add a tiny bit more oil just to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan. You definitely do not want anything sticking to the bottom of this pan.
No, you do not.
about like a teaspoon and a half or so.
Nice.
And at this point in time, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of sugar, actually.
Okay.
Just to they'll caramelize the mushroom, and they'll also add a little bit of sweetness to the sauce. So let's add about a teaspoon of sugar. That should be more than enough.
Very nice.
And so the mushrooms are browning up. This is looking good. And now, basically what I'm going to do is essentially, I have reasonable kind of base components to make almost like a quick stock. So that's what I'm actually going to do by adding a cup of water. And that helps also get all the bits of flavor from the bottom of the pan. We have a lot of Yu Choy, so we're going to make a lot of sauce. I think actually I'm going to add another cup of water as well.
Beans.
So essentially what is happening now is we've made, like, in a way, a quick mushroom, garlic, and ginger broth at the bottom. And then we're going to let this cook down for maybe about just 5 more minutes. I'm going to put the lid on it so that it tightens up, and then we're going to add the final component of the oyster sauce, and then we'll finish everything really nicely off with some sesame oil. So it's been about 5 minutes. This mushroom ginger garlic stock has been stewing away, and it's looking good. Notice the water is taking on a nice kind of like light gold color. And now I'm going to add the finishing touch. This is oyster sauce.
You love oyster sauce,
I
don't
do.
you?
This because the sauce is pretty much entirely based out of oyster sauce. There's a lot in here. I would say probably like 4 tablespoons of it. It's a lot of oyster sauce.
Heavy duty. Because it is, after all, Yu Choy.
With oyster sauce. And so as you've noticed, the sauce is now turning a darker color. Add a tiny bit more. Because we do have, at the end of the day, a decent amount of Yu Choy. That's probably about half tablespoon more. I'm going to stir this up. And now this is a nice, beautiful sauce. I'm going to put the lid on it. And now we're going to, given that you notice this is a little thin, one way that we can actually get it to be a little thicker is, of course, one, turning up the heat. And then the other thing, too, is a little bit of cornstarch. So, what I've done, this is kind of the magic trick in every, really Vietnamese or Chinese household. Anytime you're making a sauce and it's too thin, you know, every culture, I think, has a different way of doing it. We, in like my house, grew up using cornstarch. So I have about a tablespoon of cornstarch here. I'm going to just make a little paste with it. So all you do with this is you add a little bit of warm water. Just enough to make sure that it's all covered. You grab a handy dandy spoon. And you stir up the cornstarch into the water until you know for sure that there are no clumps. So you're seeing that there are pretty much no clumps. You just kind of get this kind of translucent liquid that's a little bit thicker. And this is actually going to be a perfect thickening agent without ever adding lumps into your sauce, which is, like, I think the goal of everything. Because, you know, I think some people use flour. The flour will add lumps into your sauce if you're not careful. So we have that cornstarch paste, and we're now going to add it. We're probably going to add about half of this to the sauce and look and see how it does.
Beautiful.
Now we're going to stir it on up. And you notice almost instantaneously, it's starting to get thicker already. And just to finish this off and make sure that this is a nice and thick sauce that will actually nicely coat the Yu Choy, I'll put in the second half. We'll keep on stirring. You want to make sure that the cornstarch never gets really an opportunity to clump up. And I'm going to take the lid off now, and I'm going to let this boil for probably about 3 more minutes, and we'll see you back, and we're going to finish off the dish. So if we look at the sauce, it's thickened up really nice and beautifully. I've turned the flame down to low.
It's almost like a syrup now.
It really is. And that's kind of what you want, because you want this to nicely coat everything. So as a finishing touch, I'm going to add some sesame oil, which is always a nice thing.
Has a nuttiness to it, I was fine.
Just one nice turn around the pot. And then some pepper. Probably add another teaspoon of pepper. Done. Do a quick stir. Alright, we've done one nice stir to incorporate that last bit of pepper and then the sesame oil. Take that off the flame. I've already laid out my Yu Choy in a beautiful big pan.
It is so green and vibrant.
It is a very pretty veggie. I'm just going to put the pot, I've put a cutting board down right next to the Yu Choy so that I can put my sauce down so I can appropriately just ladle it on top of the Yu Choy now.
That's so very pretty.
As you're ladling it, you'll be able to really smell all the sesame oil.
It pops. And the ginger really comes through as well, I feel. There's a nice little spiciness in the air. Beautiful.
Oh no!
One little thing has dropped, but that is fine.
You want to make sure that all of the green gets a reasonable amount of sauce.
Beautiful.
And we have a little bit of leftover, so we're going to make something with it. And of course, this is a sauce, essentially, so you can do all kinds of things with it. It's traditionally made for greens, of course, but you can do all kinds of sinister things with it if you would like, including meat and other starches as well. And so, here is Yu Choy with oyster sauce and mushrooms as well.